Where's my agenda? We're going to still switch to everything, right?
Yeah, we're gonna add the
Great.
after the citizens' comments.
I am calling I apologize for us starting a little bit tardy. I'm calling the October 27th, 2015 MDX Board of Directors meeting to order. I'd like to revise the agenda. If after the citizens' comment, number E, we're going to add a presentation from FDOT relating to the 395 project. It's an informational item. It is not a voting item, but I know a majority of the members of the board have been extremely interested in it. And Secretary Pago, I'm looking very forward to your team giving us their presentation, and I know they're already here, so I don't want them to have to be here throughout the entire meeting. If that's okay with you, we'll start the meeting after the citizens' comment with them.
Okay, thank you, Chairman.
Very good. Yes. Moved by the treasurer, seconded by the vice chair. All in favor of the revision to the agenda, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Ms. Secretary, I may have gone out of order. Can you please do a roll call?
Yes, sir. Mr. Cancio?
Present.
Mr. Ferre? Mr. Gonzalez? Ms. Gutierrez? Mr. Holland? Mr. Holland? Mr. Meyer?
Present.
Mr. Vasquez? Mr. Walters? Ms. Weinberg? Secretary Pago? Treasurer Rodriguez-Pina? Vice Chair Smith-Fano? Chair Martinez?
Here.
We have a quorum, sir.
And let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Board Member Cancio, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we've actually done A, B, and C already. Declaration of council, could you please do item D, please?
Are there any conflicts to declare on any of the items? No conflicts.
Subsection E, any citizens' comments today, Ms. Secretary? It is available if anyone wishes to make citizen comments. You are free to please make some right now. Thank you. You have exactly 2 minutes. 3 minutes, I apologize. Please identify your name and your address. Thank you.
There we go. There we go. I'm no stranger to microphones, believe me. Carlos Garcia, 127th Avenue, Kendall, with a group, Rollback Tolls. Thank you. I want to first congratulate you. It's the first time I'm up here, Chair Martinez, as you on your leadership here of this board. What I want to say is that, you know, the thing with we've been hearing a lot about the discount program and the press release that was put out by Mario regarding the amount of people that signed up but are not going to be able to qualify for whatever reason. You know, I think that's it's in the eyes of a few of those people that I've talked to is very disheartening. I think that press release also states clearly that this agency has been overcharging. A simpler way, as I've said from the first time I ever stepped foot in this room, would be to roll back the tolls. You know, it's more equitable for everybody. You don't have the cost of administering a discount program, all the work associated with a program such as that. And it would just be simpler. In fact, Carlos Jimenez, the mayor, in the letter that he wrote, he said you should just lower the tolls. And I couldn't agree with him more. The impact of this is far and wide in our community. I've lived here all my life. I was born and raised here, and I can tell you, I've traveled these roads. I've never seen 8th Street, Northwest 7th, as congested as I see them now. And I know your stats say that people come back to the highway. I think there's a certain percentage that will never come back to this highway. And I think that instead of coming up here and complaining about things, you know, I want to be proactive. Someone that's going to speak here is going to bring up a mention of a measure that people can take, you know, and take destiny into their own hands. If tolling is going to be the way that we're going to fund infrastructure moving forward, and it sure sounds like it because every time I come here, that seems like the way moving forward. I think we as a people have to have more say in how the process and how the money is spent and where the money is spent. Our community is capable of understanding a need, as it did with Jackson, as it did with the Dade County School Board. When there's a need, we can assess it, and we can make an informed decision. Yes, it's needed, we'll approve it. But I don't think that the original nature of this board back in the 90s when it was created has outlived its original purpose, and it's morphed in what it is today, and I don't think that was the original intent of MDX to become an infrastructure bank. And I'll say it, infrastructure bank. And that's what it sure seems like.
Mr. Garcia, I don't-
Sorry. All right, I think my time is up. Thank you very much, and, Carlos Garcia, rollback tolls. Thank you very much.
Good
Hello,
afternoon, ma'am.
Jane Walker, community activist, West Kendall. MDX was created in 1996 to control 5 major roadways in Miami-Dade. In 2013, however, 13 non-elected directors voted on opposing an inflation policy, changing you to an infrastructure bank. Now you will be able to profit off the debt you incur at the toll payer's expense. Government-based infrastructure banks are generally a left-of-center idea. Charge the public more today for services tomorrow. False logic is often employed to sell this idea, and we heard lots of that in 2013. When MDX borrows money at a fixed rate of interest, it is inflation-proof. When you inflate tolls that are used to pay for that debt, you make money off the difference. Over the years, the profit builds. This will result in a massive transfer of wealth from the private to the public sector. Unfortunately, public money can often evaporate. Just look at the National Transportation Highway Trust Fund or the half-penny sales tax in Miami-Dade County if you need confirmation of that. Based upon your policy, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, your first inflation adjustment will be 6%, about 6% in 2019. That would be 3 years of cumulative inflation. Could somebody nod their head so I'm not misspeaking? I'm guessing it's going to be about 6%. Nobody's nodding their head. Okay. Between 2020 and 2029, using a modest estimate of 3% inflation annually, MDX may hike the tolls another 27%. Then you have to factor in compounding. Toll payers could be paying 35% or more in 2029, and that's a conservative estimate. And I won't take time to discuss baseline budgeting today. Revenues will soar. Liabilities will shrink. Debt service and the cost of money will be flat. That is highway robbery. I call it big government tolling, which is a jobs killer, and it is something that devalues real estate. Today, MDX is small and nimble with less than 50 employees. You outsource, evolve, and modernize. You seek ways to monetize the system while providing good service to your toll payers. You are a dynamic organization. Why would you infect this agency with this infrastructure bank mentality? Tolls should be elastic and tied to actual cost. When debt goes up, tolls go up. When debt is paid off, tolls should go down, sometimes dramatically. When you find ways to monetize the system or acquire hedges against inflation, the benefits should be passed through to the toll payer. With ORT equipment, you can index your toll directly to these impacts. Chairman Martinez, you voted against this inflation policy. Please show leadership in asking the board to repeal and replace this with a more austere rate-making policy. Thank you for your service to our community and for the opportunity to address the board. I have so much more to say, and I would welcome talking with any of you privately about this. Thank you.
There's one other gentleman I believe has comments. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Wills. My address is 11165 Southwest 75 Terrace here in Miami, Florida, 33173. I'm a 33-year-old who is very proud to live here in Miami-Dade County, a very proud Floridian, and I'm very honored to be speaking before you today, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chairman, and all the members of the board. Thank you for this opportunity. I want to first echo some of the concerns that have been raised by Ms. Walker, Mr. Garcia, and share with you that as I have traveled throughout our community here in Miami-Dade and the entire state, I continue to hear the same concerns over and over again. There are many, many people that feel that there are unfair tolling practices that are reaping our state, that are hurting hardworking Floridians that are now paying hundreds of dollars in tolls on a monthly basis. And I will tell you that I am the first in any media interview, in any one-on-one conversation with any of our residents that reminds them that we have friends on the MDX board that have been tremendous voices for our community to make sure that unfair policies are not put into place. I'm the first to recognize that MDX has done great things in its history. But the fact remains that at the core of what's the angst that is being felt out there in the community is that the community and the residents of our state feel voiceless and feel powerless. They feel that they have not been involved in the decisions to impose new tolls and toll increases as those that we saw nearly a year ago now on the 836 Dolphin Expressway and elsewhere in the state. That is why I, several months ago, founded a political action committee called DRIVE. It's Drivers Ready to Improve, Vote, and Empower. And the purpose of forming the committee was to sponsor a petition initiative to amend our state's constitution and give Floridians the power to vote on tolls. Right now, those decisions are made by you all and other unelected officials across the state at Florida Department of Transportation, Central Florida Expressway Authority, the Tampa Hillsborough Expressway Authority, and others. And what we are proposing is to take that burden away from you all. MDX's own website, if you look at what about MDX is all about, says that the Miami-Dade Expressway Authority was created by the Miami-Dade County Commission to establish local control of toll revenues and ease traffic congestion. Our contention is giving Miami-Dade County residents and residents across this entire state the power to decide whether a toll or toll increase is imposed on them takes that burden away from you all so that you can focus on what should be your core mission, which is being good stewards of the funds that are collected through tolls.
I don't wish to interrupt you. You have 1 minute, though.
I understand. I'm about to wrap up. Thank you, Mr.
I
Chairman.
didn't want to have to cut you off. Thank you.
So the reason that I am here before you all today is I have personally traveled this entire state asking Floridians to sign our petition. We need to collect 700,000 to get on the November 2016 ballot. We're doing great. And I am here to ask all 13 members of the MDX board to sign our petition and give Floridians the power to vote on tolls. And I am very honored that prior to the commencing of this meeting, we've already had one of you sign that petition. Thank you very much, Mr. Cancio, for joining the hundreds of thousands of Floridians in supporting our efforts. I have petitions with me and would like to ask if any of you would like for me to present those to you so you can review it and consider signing.
Thank you for your public comments.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you all and for all that you guys do for the residents of Miami-Dade County. And I encourage you all to consider very strongly signing our petition. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Again, the name of the PAC, please.
Our political action committee is DRIVE, which stands for Drivers Ready to Improve, Vote, and Empower. Thank you. Any other questions? I'm happy to entertain them.
Thank you, Mr. Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
At this time, for
Mr.
the-
Chairman, I would like to make a comment.
Okay, well,
You know,
go ahead, Mr.
Mr.
Consul.
Wills, give me the form, I sign it, and also I would like to thank you, Mrs. Walker, Mr. Garcia,
Sure.
and him to be here. I have been here for 210 days. This is the fourth people that have been coming to address, this board. Thank you very much to be here.
Right, and I look forward to the policy and planning discussing the new cashback program later in the agenda today. Hopefully, we'll get a full information about that as well. And again, we welcome all comments from the public. We welcome you to come to every one of our meetings, and we welcome any opportunity for the public to speak out on their position, and we respect it. I'd also like to make a quick clarification for those who just arrived. We've changed the agenda where we're going to hear a presentation from the state now on 395 before we move forward. It's an informational item only, so it's not an action item, but it will give the board information that we have been seeking for some time. Secretary Pago, if you and your staff is ready, I look forward to this presentation.
Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge ask the members who just came in if you have any conflicts to declare with the agenda.
For me.
Okay, no conflicts noted. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. It's certainly our pleasure to be here as part of the continued partnership between the Florida Department of Transportation and the Miami-Dade Expressway Authority. And we have before us Albert Sosa as well as Beth Estimo with our consultant that's been the project leader in the development of our partnership to improve I-395, 836, as well as the I-95 main line within the influence of the interchange. With that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Albert.
Thank you, Mr. Pago. Albert Sosa with HNTB, GEC consultant to MDX. Basically, the projects are 3 individual projects that are partnered together in order to increase mobility in the area of I-95, 836, 395, the main entrance there into downtown. They consist of MDX with 836-11, I-395 and that reconstruction project, as well as I-95 and a pavement reconstruction project there. Beth will be talking to us later also about the procurement process and schedule associated with the package of the 3 projects, because they will be let as one project by FDOT. Basically, what you see before you is how the projects are divided. We have 836-11, which is basically from I-95 along 836 to the west. You have I-395, which picks up at I-95 and goes to the east, basically to the bay. And the I-95 project would be to the north of there. It's important to note that these projects tie into the Port of Miami Tunnel that was recently completed by FDOT, and they do serve as a gateway into downtown and increase connectivity between the port, the central business district, as well as the airport. The projects in general, they increase capacity, they improve safety, they also reduce evacuation times for residents that are living on Miami Beach, and as I discussed before, it does improve connectivity between the Port of Miami, downtown, and the airport. For the MDX portion on 836-11, the project goes from 17th Avenue to the I-95 interchange. It's approximately 1.5 miles, and it's a very urban area there, so it's very tight. We're dealing with an urbanized area, a major interchange connection between 2 systems, 836 and I-95, as well as the hospital district that's there, the University of Miami that's there, different government buildings that are there. You're also constrained by the Miami River, and basically the corridor that you're in is very, very urbanized, very tight. So our goal is to add capacity by adding 1 lane in each direction. We're also eliminating the weaving movement, whereas right now, when you're in the health district, you get on at 12th Avenue going towards I-95, you have to weave across 3 lanes to get to the I-95 northbound ramp. This project will resolve that by creating a collector-distributor road system on both sides of 836 to handle that traffic to and from 12th Avenue, to and from the health district. We'll also be replacing the concrete pavement along 836 in the area as well as doing some work on the actual, in the river, on the fender system that's protecting the existing bridges. To give you an idea, because of the constrained corridor that is 836 today, in order to build those collector-distributor roads, we're basically having to elevate the ramps. So the connections to and from I-95 along the south and north side of 836 will be at a third level, cantilevered over the existing expressway there. In terms of the aesthetic features of our project, that's something that we get asked a lot because of the partnership with 395 and FDOT and their aesthetic features. This project will be very similar to the other MDX projects that are done. They all contain aesthetic elements. Our column treatments, our wall treatments, our sign treatments, landscape treatments are all very consistent with the rest of our system, and we will be following the aesthetics manual that this board adopted in the past for our system. With that, I want to turn it over to Beth so she can discuss the FDOT project.
Thank you, Albert. So I-395 portion picks up where we meet MDX 83611 in the interchange, and we are improving all the way to basically the bay. As he said, we are tying into MacArthur Causeway. This is a 1.4-mile project, and what we're doing now is we're separating out our eastbound and westbound connectors that's what we call our collector distributors, where they go to northbound and southbound I-95. Basically, right now, if you realize it's all one system, we're going to separate those out from the main line. The main line has one existing through lane from the interchange all the way over to MacArthur. We're going to improve it so there'll be 3 through lanes in each direction. We're moving the interchange 1 block west to North Miami, and we're going to pick up exactly where that ties in. We're also doing some street improvements. In Overtown, the existing I-395 put a pier basically at Northwest 2nd Avenue, but we're reestablishing that important northwest-south connection. And then streetscape is very important, and I'll get into that a little bit with our other slides. So aesthetics is something is very important on this project for those of you that have followed it. Right now on I-395, it's very low. We have a lot of beams, so it create a lot of dark spaces. So what we're requiring throughout the entire project is a closed box system. And with the closed box systems, you need much less girders, and then we're also increasing the vertical clearance. And this is an example of what our pier shapes will look like. We want all of our piers to be consistent with the closed box. And so the signature bridge has been something that's very critical to our project. We're going to have a signature bridge that spans over Biscayne Boulevard. That was one of the commitments of the EIS study. And these are just 2 examples of what the signature bridge could look like. We're not sure what it will be through working with the Aesthetic Steering Committee process. That's going to be left up during the procurement phase. It's going to be selected as a pass-fail through that, so the teams are going to be able to submit their own concepts. We have worked with the DOT and worked with the different community organizations and representatives to come up with these 2 concepts of what it could be. One thing that's very important, as you can see in this aerial rendering, is we want it to be in scale with what the city of Miami is now and what's to come. And here's a view along southbound Biscayne of what it would look like if you can see the context and the lighting. Aesthetic lighting is very important. And then traveling eastbound along the roadway. So besides the signature bridge and the structures, what's also very important on our project is the streetscape, is what we're calling the streetscape design, because it's a little more than just basic landscaping that we normally see. We have separated our project into 3 zones. Zone 1 is the Overtown area. That's more residential and feel. Zone 2 is where you start transitioning more industrial. And then Zone 3 is when you get into the downtown area, more urban environment. So what we want to do is provide spaces that people can come and gather, walk through, provide sidewalks where you don't have to walk around the block. One thing the FDOT has committed to on this project, instead of using these spaces underneath for dry ponds for drainage purposes, which are very efficient, is to use a system of pumps and wells to handle the drainage. That allows all of these spaces to be flat so that we can incorporate sidewalks, we can incorporate these gathering spaces for future uses. And here's a rendering of what it would look like with our current concept design, and this is in Overtown area. This is at 3rd and 14th. One of our commitments from the EIS study is to have vertical clearance, a minimum vertical clearance, east of FEC of 19 feet and west of FEC of 25 feet. So in most cases, we meet those. In a lot of cases, we exceed those, especially, you know, over FEC as we come down. We're really constrained where we tie into the interchange and then over at MacArthur. With the closed box system and with our concept design, this is what our baseline is going to be, but we expect the teams to come in with something more. If you see the strip lighting, that is something that we're requiring all of the teams. It's going to be over all of the streets. It's what we call as portal lighting. It's kind of has wayfinding as you're walking through the space so that you know where the cross streets are, and they'll have the ability to be turned on during the day and the night. This is just a nighttime or daytime picture of a different view. And this is as we move into Zone 2. One of the things you see is a parking lot. One thing that has been pretty consistent throughout the project is we worked, since we started this several years ago, was to provide for a parking lot. It fit well within Zone 2, within the interchange, to provide easy access to and from. And this is what it could look like at night. If you see the back where the abutment wall is enhanced lighting, aesthetic lighting is very important. And this is what the signature bridge could look like with the different lighting. The previous views were just white lighting, but we want to have perhaps color-changing LEDs. Again, we don't know. Its concept depends on what the teams come up with. And this is the space underneath. And this is a rendering of what it could look like with the clearance, with what we're requiring to show how people can come in and use these spaces for different activities. You see, you know, runners, classes in the background, people just enjoying that, which we want people to come in and provide that connectivity. So I-95, that's another project that's partnered. Albert mentioned that we're partnering to provide that connectivity from the east-west corridor, but also I-95 is important. It is running through our project. It makes sense to pull it in, disrupt the traveling public as minimally as possible. This is a pavement reconstruction project. They're going to just replace the rigid concrete pavement and the asphalt shoulder with full-depth rigid concrete pavement. They're going to address some drainage issues. They're also going to do some traffic railing retrofit to bring it up to current crash rating. Their traffic control requires them to do all the work at night, so all the lanes will be open during the day. Now, the big question that everyone has is how is this going to be procured because of the three projects? Working with the Aesthetic Steering Committee, and because of the signature bridge is so important, we've developed a 4-step process. The first one, we'll just advertise and shortlist design-build teams. The second step was what we're calling the signature bridge aesthetic submittal. That is where the teams will submit their concepts of the signature bridge, and it will be pass-failed by the Aesthetic Steering Committee. You have to get a passing bridge in order to advance to the third step, which is our typical technical submittal, which addresses all the technical issues on all segments of the project. And then the final step is the price submittal, where we open the bids. To kind of lay this out, where we are now is we're getting ready. We're preparing all of our documents to go to advertisement. Once we advertise, we then go into the procurement process. We estimate that to take about 12 to 14 months. We're still finalizing the schedule. And then we're going to contract execution. Our anticipated construction time is about 5 years. And with that, I open it up to any questions.
Yes, it's informational, but I'm looking forward to asking any questions. Mr. Walters, you may begin.
When you do the aesthetic review, will a design be selected at that point, and then all the shortlisted firms will put their proposals together based on that one particular design?
No. So the shortlisted firms, we're going to put together a criteria. It'll be a traditional shortlisting. Then after those, they'll be shortlisted up to 5 teams. Those 5 teams will then present their own concepts that they have to the Aesthetic Steering Committee. They're called the Aesthetic Review Committee now because we sunsetted the steering committee. But they will present their own bridge concepts. Basically, what we have is a criteria. We've developed sort of a box. They have to have a minimum suspended span length of 550 feet, a minimum total bridge length of 600 feet for the signature span. They have to meet a minimum vertical clearance. They have to meet a minimum apex above that. So within that box, the teams come up with their own ideas.
Well, I'm assuming price is going to be a major component of this selection. And it would seem that the design could vary the price greatly, and I'm not sure I see how you make a comparison like this.
Well, this is a max price RFP process. So any proposal that goes over the max price that's set by the department will be non-responsive in the end. So it will be up to, and the teams will be fully aware of this. So as they're developing their concepts, and we've been meeting with them throughout this whole process, and as they're developing their concepts, they're aware of that price. We're also requiring them to submit a letter to us that sufficient engineering has been done to meet the price at the end.
Uses me is if you're the client, you're paying the freight. Why don't you pick the design and let everyone bid on that?
I'll turn it over to Secretary Pago. It's been a long process.
The environmental impact statement, and we have made the commitment to build a signature structure, something that would be a gateway to our community, to and from Miami Beach, the city of Miami. And as part of that commitment, the question became, well, what is a signature structure? Certainly everyone can have a different view. It's kind of like, a painting. Do you like it or you don't like it? So in order to get past that hurdle, we formed this aesthetic steering committee comprised of the MPO, the downtown development, the city of Miami, the county, and the Arch Center, in order to take the first screenings of what could be done from the project advisory group, a highly technical group, to more of a cross-section of our community to see what would we like built. But to get directly to your question, board member, the reality is that aesthetics, price, time are all going to be a formula, a factor in the procurement. So in order just to get to play the game, you have to pass the aesthetic committee to say, yes, that's a bridge that we would like to be represented in our community. So then from the technical point of view, we'll evaluate time and impacts to our community and grade it appropriately, through the process. So the intent would be, as a max bid price, that the WOW structure gets built and be the best value for the taxpayers of Miami-Dade County.
I hear what you're saying, but it still seems counterintuitive to me to have a process with that major component open and then to have people competing on a best price basis. I don't see how it works.
Okay, well,
it would seem to me you're just kicking the can down the road. That if there's any discussion or any disagreement over what's aesthetic and what isn't, you've just kicked the can down the road. It's going to happen at the end of the process.
I'll be more than happy to talk to you individually afterwards, but primarily we're setting the stage. The aesthetics community committee is setting the bar.
See, I'll tell you where I'm coming from, Gus. A couple of months ago, I made a comment on the GEC that, my view of it was there was a lot of management involved, and we didn't have to have all technical people on it. Now I'm hearing a decision's going to be made, not on the technical merits, but on how it looks. And, it's kind of rubbing me the wrong way.
That's one of the factors, as well as time, cost.
My thought, and it's your project, it should have been decided up front, and you tell the people who are submitting, this is what it's going to look like.
And Board Member Walters, what we can do is, if you'd like Secretary Pago to discuss this issue more thoroughly, with what your concerns are, I think it's very valid. I know we have other board members that have some questions as well.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. Board Member Meyer?
Yes, thank you. So I understand where you're coming from, and I would agree a project like this should design, bid, build type scenario, but I also agree that from a timely standpoint, it's a good process, and I'm sure when they went and built various bridges throughout the country back in the early 1900s, there were a lot of people upset with them, and now they're iconic structures today. So that said, my question is really on the iconic piece, because it's a girder-type bridge structure, correct? So the iconic component, this bridge won't be a suspension bridge, it won't hold merit in terms of an engineering standpoint. It's more just of an aesthetic feature?
Oh, no, that's actually, thank you for the question, because I want to clarify that. Early on, we had looked at some architectural-only bridges to compare costs, to see what it could be for structural. One of the requirements is that this does have to be a structural bridge. So when we talk about the suspended span length, the suspender cables, if it's an arch, or if it's a suspension bridge, or if it's a cable stay bridge, it will be fully structural. That is a
That's going to
requirement.
support from one cantilever to the other? And
Yeah, and that's why
Gotcha, okay.
and that's why we sent the minimum span length, because there's girders right now that don't span that.
Correct. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
But
Yes, I'm sorry.
Just so the public
Go
is
ahead,
clear,
Board Member Weinberg, go ahead.
the iconic bridge piece, it's not MDX.
Right.
Right,
It is not-
okay.
Exactly. But this is
So-
informational for us to read.
It's nice
Exactly.
to have, but I don't have any questions on the MDX piece.
No. Okay. So, Board Member Concio. Or do you have any other comments? I'm sorry, Board Member Weinsberg, is that it?
I just wouldn't want the public to be confused because all the questions are about the iconic piece, which it's not MDX side. We leave right off of the I-95.
That's our cutoff. That's where we
That's
stop.
where we stop.
Well,
That's where our toll dollars go.
Hold on.
That's true. It is not an MDX part of the project, but it's part of the project, and MDX is paying a big chunk of it.
confused because we're spending a lot of time on
Right. Sure. Board Member?
Correct.
Correct.
It's
Board
on the
Member-
I-395 FDOT portion of the project.
All right. Board Member Concio.
Mr. Chairman, I want to congratulate you on the Florida Department of Transportation. A beautiful design, because it's a big bottleneck, when you are getting to downtown Miami. The other day, Mr. Ferrer, that is in the MPO and also a board member of MDX, was talking something about the walls close to the Jenkins property. I would like that you talk with him. And also, being a concrete guy for more than 50 years, I am very glad to see that, this project is going to have more concrete and less asphalt. And it's something, going to be less heat. The cars and trucks, they're able to brake in less space, going to be lighted, and going to be safety for the people who use the facility. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board? This was just informational. I thought I don't know if we have a timeline. Go ahead.
I think the timeline is...
procurement will be advertised within the next 60 days, would be my guess, and then about a year in the process, and then we'll start groundwork.
Yes, and if I...
Again, back
Yeah.
onto our portion of
Yeah.
MDX project.
We're going to be, and yeah, I want to clarify the comment. I think the reason the presentation is made together is because the 83611 project and the I-395 with the I-95 pavement are all being strung together and let as one project. But to clarify the record, MDX is only paying for the 836 portion, okay? In fact, the way the documents are put together and the way the contracts will be executed will clarify that in the future. So that is for clarity. And I just wanted to say, because as I've heard the connections underneath, almost 20 years ago, Secretary Pago, I remember being a young engineer and going to the MPO, and I think till today, it's the longest presentation that the MPO has given any entity. The Department of Transportation made a presentation on I-395. Back then, it was Secretary Abreu who made the presentation. The project was fully funded. All the right-of-way was there. But the community was not comfortable with it because of the division. And at that point, the DOT started the process again, and this is the culmination of it. And to finance a project of this magnitude is a tremendous step in the right direction for Miami-Dade County. So thank you, and I look forward to being a partner.
And I'd like to thank Secretary Pable, your staff, for this wonderful presentation. We really appreciate it greatly. It keeps us informed, and it shows the innovative, forward-moving way we are going with all of these projects to not only describe, as Board Member Concio says, something that is aesthetically pleasing as well as functional is really important, because this is a tourist city, guys, and we don't want to be an asphalt jungle, for lack of a better word. And I think it's really exciting that we're going to have a combination of that. And I'd like to commend staff and the Secretary in particular for all of them.
Thank you. I'd like to just wrap up Beth's comment to say a couple of things that I think are really important as far as the project. Of
course.
And one, the Signature Bridge is only about 10% of the total project length, okay? But it's the one drawing the most attention. And in reality, it's 1.4 miles just on the 395, complete reconstruction, including mainline I-95 reconstruction. We're transforming our community to a better place. Something that's dark and gloomy as you drive down those ramps today will be light and airy.
Sure.
An attraction for pedestrians and really promote context-sensitive design and you know, that whole synergy that's created with the redevelopment of downtown Miami. So, you know, we're excited about delivering the project to our community, and, you know, we'll be giving the board updates as we proceed through the process. You will have members on the Technical Evaluation Committee as well as the Selection Committee.
Very exciting, and we're looking forward for more updates as the process goes on. Thanks again, Beth, and Secretary, again, thank you so much. Moving on, item 2, the approval of the summary minutes from the board meeting of September 29, 2015. Does anyone wish to move that item? Moved by Treasurer Rodriguez-Pina, seconded by Board Member Gonzalez. Any discussion on the item? Hearing none, all in favor of approving it? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, item passes unanimously. The Executive's Director's Report. Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I will combine my comments with an update of the MPO as well, and I'll leave some of the MPO to the chairman for proper time. In giving you my report, I also want to mention that, and the tie-in with the MPO is that our strategic plan was presented at the MPO's Transit Solutions Committee on October 7th. Louis Ahamil and myself were there. We answered questions. We shared with the commission, the commissioners, the board members, what our strategic plan was, and invited them for comments. It was very well received. The concept of hubs throughout the community and the expressways being the spokes where you can operate express buses as an option was well received. We recently received a request from Board Member Levine Cava, Commissioner Levine Cava. She wants us to present the strategic plan at her financial committee as well, because she's heard a lot about it. So we will continue to go that route, and we will continue to keep the board abreast of the progress. On October 15th, Chairman Martinez and I met with Vice Chairman Jose Felix Diaz of the Miami-Dade delegation. It was a very productive meeting. We shared, again, our vision for the community and how we would like to move it forward. I would say it was a very good meeting. As we met with him, we've met with other elected officials, local elected officials, and we will begin the process of meeting with state elected officials now, and I will keep the board abreast of that. On October 21st, MDX hosted, our boardroom hosted, a Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce discussion on transit funding. It was a very interesting discussion. Various members were here. Board member, our treasurer, Rodriguez-Pina, welcomed the group. My only comment to the group, and I've been consistent as long as I've been an engineer, is that this community continues to pick sides, continues to pick either or. We're a multicultural, multifaceted community. We should have all of the above. It shouldn't be a port tunnel versus rail. It should be both. It shouldn't be an aesthetic bridge versus a non-aesthetic. It should be both. It shouldn't be transit versus cars. It should be both. Consumers should have a choice. That's what we should do. And that was my message at that day. And it's interesting because a lot of the business community who has been commenting on transportation is also expressing, you know, having choices. And I think the Secretary and I are on that page that it's about choices. As far as status of ongoing projects, you heard about 83611, I-395, so I won't speak to that. 83629, which is the interchange at 87th Avenue and 836, was already advertised on September 15th. We expect to receive bids on November 3rd of 2015. It is a low bid. It is a price submittal. 83628, which is the reconstruction, the widening between 57th Avenue and 17th Avenue, is well underway. As many of you have seen, early works such as milling and resurfacing has already begun. You're seeing new pavement on 836 as you're heading into downtown. We've also started to remove some of the landscape and relocate it so that the major construction can start at the interchanges. So you're going to be seeing that. The one significant item that I did want to discuss with you is that right-of-way acquisition has already begun. Our consultants have already been sending out letters to those affected property owners with offers. So that process, as you authorized in the last couple of meetings, has already begun. The project is well underway and ahead of schedule. The other project I wanted to give you an update on is the consolidated back office that we have been waiting forever for ruling. The administrative judge ruled in favor of the Florida Department of Transportation, and the Florida Department of Transportation has begun the finalization of a notice to proceed with the proposed vendor, Xerox. The Florida DOT has asked us to participate early, and we will participate early, so our staff will be participating from the beginning of the development of the CCSS. The last thing I wanted to state was that I hear the comments that the community makes about different programs and about, our policies, and I welcome them. We listen to them, and as will be discussed today in the board, many of those comments are enacted into policy and amended into policy. We just have to vet them and make sure that they fit in with the mission of the authority. With that said, when we created the Advantage program late last year, and it was to address the most frequent of users, and we were asked by the board to go out to the community and advertise it. And yes, I agree that when we put it out, some of the criteria was confusing. We heard the community, but we did get the word out. We got a lot of folks to sign up for it. Then we transitioned that program to the cashback dividends program, and we'll speak about that later on in the agenda. But what I wanted to express to the board is that we just received a PR News Community Outreach Award. It's a national award for that program. So, we have the award. It's great. I'm sure next year we will apply again, and I'm confident we will receive it again. But more important than that is that 82,000, 83,000 people signed up for it, or 84,000 people, I apologize, signed up for that. And we'll be able to communicate with 84,000 people. And for all those people that didn't qualify, we'll be able to explain exactly why they didn't qualify. And it isn't because they didn't pay tolls. It's just because they didn't pay tolls on the MDX highways. That has nothing to do with whether they paid or not. So we'll be able to go down that route. With that, Mr. Chairman, I conclude my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. I have some follow-up comments on the MPO. Last week, the MPO hired a new executive director, a young lady by the name of Eileen Bouclier. I want to speak on behalf of the board that we are looking forward to working with Ms. Bouclier and maximizing and working with MDX to continue to work together, to work as a team in resolving the transportation and issues that we have here as members of this community. All of us here, as we all know, are all volunteers. We take time out of our difficult days to come here, and we are looking forward to working with Ms. Bouclier and the MPO in resolving all the issues, and we congratulate her for her appointment. I understand Secretary Pago, she currently is working for District 6. I can't imagine anyone who works for someone as good a guy as you are. She has to be. I have not personally met her. I look forward to meeting her. But if she was working with you, she's got to be very well prepared and ready for a very challenging task dealing with the 23 members of the MPO. So I want to congratulate her, and I want to tell her that we are looking very forward to meeting her and working with her in the future. And obviously, congratulations to you for obviously much of our preparation came with working with you as well, Secretary.
Thank you. I'll pass on the sentiments of the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the General Counsel report. Francine, will you be doing that today?
Yes.
Great.
Carlos Zaldivar can't be here today because he is in trial with the ETC case, and that's why you're not having a shade meeting today. But we should be able to provide a shade meeting next month. But as it stands, the MDX case regarding ETC has closed today, and both sides will be presenting in a rebuttal case, and the case should close on Thursday. The other pending item is the bid protest with MCM. MCM has appealed the latest judgment, and so our outside counsel is still handling that matter, and on Friday, there's a hearing regarding attorney's fees. And that is the end of the General Counsel report.
Thank you, Francine. Treasurer's report. Treasurer Rodriguez Pena.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here in the audience and board members. Good evening to you as well. Not much really to report. Obviously, our finances, for those of you who have any questions, our finances are in front of you. I'm going to let Marie address any particular items that she feels. We are within budget, online, and in a healthy posture. Marie, anything you want to add?
We are having technical difficulties.
All right. Sorry about that. So this is the September report. Roughly around $2 million, $19 million for the month of September. And we have about, I took a look at our traffic. We're running about 5.8% above from traffic perspective. So traffic is doing really well. On the expense side, operations is pretty much flat. Maintenance is a little bit over budget, and that's mainly due to they've been spending a little bit extra moving up their schedule on structural inspections for the bridges, so that's what occurred for the first half of this fiscal year. And then the only other item that I want to point out, salary, tax, and benefits is pretty much flat. It's on budget. And then our administration line item, which includes our professional services, for this report, we're a little bit over budget on the legal expense. We think we'll get caught up by the end of the year. So overall, all in all, I concur with our treasurer. We're pretty much on target where we expect to be, so we're in pretty good shape.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I think as Marie mentioned, our revenues as far as the traffic are actually up. So that wanted to make a point. I even had a private conversation after the meeting with Commissioner Bobo about something similar at the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce about people taking roads. And I said that I took umbrage with the fact that he made that statement, and he said, well, that I said the data did not support that, and here again we have another example of the data not supporting the congestion that is currently on these ancillary roads. So I think, politics is politics, and I understand that game very well, but the facts are the facts, and I think we have facts and data, and I welcome anybody that wants to see those facts, and our revenues show it. So thank you.
You stole my thunder, Mr. Rodriguez-Pena. Anybody else have any comments for the Treasury report? I do have one question, Mr. Treasurer. Just to clarify, we are up 5.8 on the projected numbers. Are we also above what the amount of traffic that we did last year at this time as well? Is that?
It's not apples to apples, but
Correct.
Overall for each of the quarters, it was running anywhere about 4% to about 6%.
In traffic increase from last year?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So we are in fact seeing an increase in traffic of at least 4 to 6% per corridor. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, and board members, there is a direct correlation with improvements we make on the highways and increased traffic, because like water, it's going to take the path of least resistance. It is very important to get from point A to point B in a safe and efficient, predictable manner. And as the 826, 836 interchange is coming to completion, the 836 portion, which about a month and a half ago was put back into its correct location, is actually flowing tremendously well, and that is contributing to the increased traffic. So,
And Murray, just for clarification, the increase in the legal expenses is directly related to the trial that is currently going forward, as well as the appeal involving MCM, correct?
Correct.
Obviously, we are filing a motion for legal fees, because that could, should we're successful in those capacities, that could easily be offset in the near future as well, correct?
Exactly.
If I may also,
Of
yeah, I
course.
think the meeting that Marie mentioned on Friday will exactly address, we're going out of pocket to cover the legal fees, but we're anticipating getting that money back. And that's why we're currently, at the moment, even though that lawsuit has been dismissed twice, I believe it's being challenged. I think in the appellate court, I believe that we should be recuperating that money.
Excellent, excellent. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you. Do we have documented numbers as to ridership numbers over the last 3-5 years?
yes, we do.
Okay,
We
may I
have
ask
it quarter
that-
over quarter, and we will actually make it available to all
That
the
would be
board
great. I
members.
think that is, those are numbers that speak for themselves as to these comments that we hear in the community.
It's not only that, Mr. Vasquez, the Florida DOT actually did a study on the side roads on all the parallel facilities to address that specific issue, and it was published. So we'll make that study available as well.
Has there been any year where ridership has declined?
Yeah, there was ridership declined in 2009, right at the peak, at the height of the economic downturn.
Last 5 years?
Yeah.
Last 5 years?
In the last
5 years?
No,
Has there been?
no, it continues to go back up. It bounces
thank you.
right back up.
Any other questions? Thank you. Moving on the committee reports, since it's part of the regular agenda, I will reserve the discussion of the policy committee. If that's acceptable to Mr. Gonzalez, we'll just make it part of the regular agenda. Thank you very much. Regular agenda, item A, council, please.
MDX procurement contract, MDX 15-12, legal representation and civil action brought against MDX by MCM. It was endorsed by Policy and Planning Committee on October 23rd. The action before you is to approve the increase of the contract funds due to the ongoing litigation that's pending in circuit court, again involving MCM.
Thank you very much. And does anyone, who's going to present this for staff, or is it already?
It was thoroughly presented at Policy and Planning. I'll be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Before we get there, does anyone wish to move the item?
Moved.
Moved by Board Member Weinberg, seconded by Mr. Gonzalez. The item is now open for discussion. Does anyone have any questions? Hearing no questions, the item discussion is closed. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, item passed unanimously. Item B, please, council.
Item B through F, we're going to handle them separately in case there are questions by any of the members, but all of these items were discussed at the Policy and Planning Committee, are endorsed by the Policy and Planning Committee. The first is the revision of the procurement policy.
Helen.
Thank you, sir. This is a combination of all the items that were discussed at the Policy and Planning Committee workshop back in February, earlier this year, and all of the changes that were addressed in the outline were endorsed by the Policy and Planning Committee last week, with one minor change to allow communications between legal counsel and proposers during the cone of silence. That was the only change that was asked by the Policy and Planning Committee out of the revisions presented to them and before you today. If you'd like to go over them in detail, otherwise.
The first thing we need to move the items first. May I ask council, are we going to move them all individually, or do you want to move them as a group?
I suggest we move them individually. That way, if there are questions, we can deal with it.
So we're only dealing with item B at this time. Who wishes to move item B to move it? Moved by Board Member Weinberg, seconded by Vice Chair Fano. The item is now open for discussion. Do board members have any questions for staff on item B?
And board members, and just to clarify, since this meeting was last week, any item that needed additional discussion, and there was the lobbyist policy, there was the discussion of addressing the board, the community comment policy. We're taking those back and we're going to work them, and we're going to take them through policy and planning before bringing them to the board. So what's in front of you is what everybody agreed to, that there was consensus on agreeing. Whatever wasn't agreed to is going back to committee, and will come back to the board at a later date.
So let's begin with item B. Does anyone have any questions about line item B? Hearing none, it's been moved and seconded. Item now is closed for discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, item C, please, council.
Item C, revision to the MDX bylaws, endorsed by Policy and Planning.
Helen, we'll do it the same way. Helen, you can do the presentation first, and then we'll open it for discussion. Go ahead.
Thank you. And the changes to the bylaws are basically a reflection of the approved changes to the MDX procurement policy, clarifying that the delegated authority to the standing committees are in accordance with the MDX procurement policy. That was the only change made to the bylaws.
Anyone wish to move the item? Moved by Board Member Concho, seconded by Vice Chair Fano. Open for discussion. Does anyone have any questions on line item C only at this point? Hearing no questions, discussion is closed. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, item passes unanimously. Item D.
Item D, revision to the small business participation policy.
This item, the changes proposed to this item are to be in line with the application of the policy to procurement processes that are beyond the small business, the small purchase threshold of $25,000 or more. The changes to the small business enterprise programs as approved by the Miami-Dade County Commission, and to also include in the policy a definition so that whenever there is a small business certification for a particular type of services, that the agency has the option of developing a criteria to include small business participation within a solicitation process.
Very good. Does anyone wish to move we're at item C or D? D, correct?
D.
D, correct. Item D, who wishes to move it? Moved by Board Member Weinberg, seconded by Mr. Gonzalez. Item is open for discussion. Anyone wish to have any comments on it? Look at the next one. Hearing none, item is closed. He said second. Very, point well taken. Item is closed for discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item E.
Item E, revision of the delegation of authority policy.
These changes, again, are tying to the changes approved with the procurement policy related to the executive director's approval of contracts and supplemental agreements, the emergency declaration by the executive director, and the signature authority by the executive director and the chair, vice chair, and treasurer. And they're all just tying with what has already been approved through the MDX procurement policy.
Moved by Vice Chair File, seconded by Secretary Pago. The item is now open for discussion. Does anyone have any questions on this item? Hearing none, discussion is closed. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, I also vote aye. Item passes unanimously. F.
The last item is item F, revision, not the last item for you to vote on, but regarding the procurement policy, the revision of the local business participation policy.
The proposed changes here are, again, to apply the policy to procurements of $25,000 or more, which are tied to our small purchases, and also to change the terminology used throughout from debarment to suspension, which is defined in the MDX procurement policy.
Very good. Anyone wish to move the item? Moved by Treasurer Rodriguez Pina. Are you going to second? Seconded by Mr. Vasquez. I am now waiting for that. Item is open for discussion. Does anyone wish to discuss the item? Discussion is closed. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, item passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, now that you voted on both those two items, and I didn't want to make the comment before on the small business and local business, I want to thank the board because basically what these policies did is expand our program. We're making it more reaching for more businesses, small and local, to participate in the MDX program. So thank you.
Outstanding. Item G.
Item G is the cashback toll dividend policy. It was endorsed by Budget and the Finance Committee on September 24th and the Policy and Planning Committee on October 23rd.
Very good. Who wishes to move the item? Ms. Gutierrez is going to move the item, correct? Moved by Ms. Marissa Gutierrez, who wishes to second it. Seconded by Ms. Fano. The item is now open for discussion. Who will present for staff?
Again, this was thoroughly presented two times, one at Budget and Finance, once at Policy and Planning. I think the major change, as it was highlighted at Policy and Planning, would be on the last page, on where it talks about reporting and legal requirements. Basically, it speaks to that the termination of the program will require a resolution of the board subsequent to a public hearing. That's the major change from Budget and Finance to Policy and Planning.
Okay. I'm going to have some questions, but before that, does any other board members have any questions first? Great. I'm going to be asking staff and Mr. Rodriguez. Let's start with, for those who were not present and who may not have been here for that meeting when we discussed this, how many people specifically applied for the cashback program?
84,000.
And approximately of those, how many qualified? Mr. Diaz, if you could give me an estimated number.
39.
About 38,000.
Yeah, 38,000. 38,000.
Of the ones that did not qualify, they did not qualify because, if I'm correct, because they've spent less than $50 a month in the 6-month period on our MDX toll rolls. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct. What we were able to isolate was, of the remaining that did not, of the 38 that qualified, the remaining amount, 13,000, paid zero toll on MDX Expressway. And the remaining amount of that paid less than $50.
And of the 38,000 that qualified, if I'm correct, approximately 55% of them, of that group, spent between between $8 to $25 a month total over the 6 months. Is that correct? Because I believe it was between $50 and $150 for the 55% that qualified. Is that correct?
Correct.
So an overwhelming majority of the 84,000 that applied were spent on our roadways in a 6-month period, between less than $150 over that period. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Just for clarification, what is the total amount of the dividend during this period?
The cashback dividend that was declared by Budget and Finance was 30%. So if someone spent $100, they would basically get $30 back.
$30. But the amount that we declared was, I believe, 2.2 million total. Is that correct?
It was 2.2 million. That's correct, and that was for the 6-month period.
Mr. Rodriguez, for my personal edification, if we decide to hypothetically reduce the tolls for that $2.2 million, approximately how much would we have reduced the tolls?
I think it was a third of a penny.
Just for clarification, I believe I actually used to say it was about half a penny.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So for those who are actually spending the most who applied, we're giving back, for someone who spent, say, $150, we're giving that individual back $45 instead of giving someone half a penny back every time they take a gantry. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, it is, Mr. Chairman. And because this program is tied to our performance, if we were to reduce the toll rates, let's say by a third of a penny or rounded it up to a penny, then we would also have to adopt the policy that if our performance underperforms, because we must meet our financial obligations, then we would have to raise the tolls. So rather than raising and lowering them every year, this program is more effective. The other thing I want to state for the record is when we had our traffic and revenue consultants come before this board in October of 2013 and then again at public hearing in October of 2012 and then in public hearings in early 2013, they presented what the traffic and revenue would be. They presented what the traffic patterns would be. Traffic patterns in Miami are no longer like they were in the mid-90s and the early 80s. It is no longer that everybody commutes all the way to downtown for work. There are as many people commuting from downtown to the Doral area and from South Dade to the Doral area and to the Dadeland area. And what these numbers showed us, and it was almost to a T, you can build the bell curve. It was almost amazing how you could see the average toll rate for the 84,000 people that showed up and the 38,000 that qualified. It met that same bell curve. And that's a very true testament of how traffic operates in Miami.
And Mr. Rodriguez and staff, also for clarification, obviously I'm discussing the number $150. However, there are others who understandably spent significantly more, but they are also going to get 30% back of what they spent as well, correct?
Correct.
And our program, pursuant to our bylaws, is limited to just the 5 highways that involves MDX.
Yes.
So if individuals are on the tolls or I-95, we have no control over their tolls and the amount they spend, correct?
Correct.
Very good, thank you. I have no other questions. Does anyone else want? Huh?
May I cross?
Any other questions?
I've been there this week. I feel like if I'm deja vu, I've been there.
There's an old rule of thumb. Lawyer never asks a question he doesn't know the answer to. So does anyone have any other questions other than what I have just clarified for the record?
Of course. I have a brief question.
Of course. Mr. Cancio, ladies first, if that's acceptable. Board Member Weinsberg.
No, thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Chairman. I was hoping you'd do that because this is, I think this is the final stretch for our give back. Thank you. And it was great to revisit and explain it. And Javier, I almost want you to repeat the greatest benefit of this, which is that the elimination of the up and the down and the up and the down. And as everybody knows, because I don't think a meeting goes by without me mentioning it, I am one of those toll payers who's on the very, very high end of the spectrum of over $200 a month, less than $10 of which is on an MDX roadway. I am the 95 Express and the Turnpike toll payer, and I pay my tolls as needed. It's a choice that we make. And the day I let any registered voter in the state of Florida vote on whether or not tolls are raised, even though it is a user-based system, will be the day we let non-American citizens come vote for our president or vote for anything else, in my opinion. Not everybody who uses our roadway should be entitled to vote on our issues. That's where I stand, and everybody should be clear on that. But Javier, one of the key components, and I'm sure our former chair sees that, or you picked up on Javier's main comment, which is probably where you were going when you were digging that up, is the elimination of we did so well, we can cut back some tolls, we did so poorly, now we have to raise the tolls. This program just gives back whatever there might have been overages and gives it right back to the pockets of our roadway users who use our roads by choice right before Christmas holiday. And if you would, Marie, what is the highest check that is going to go out? We had a range of an average of what would be going out and when those checks would be going out?
We had the higher checks less than 3%. Some people are going to get $200 back. We had, I think we have some cab drivers, some Uber, is it Uber? Is that pronouncing it correctly? Who use our roadway. But the average check is anywhere from, I think it's $60 to about $110, somewhere around. Those are the majority of the range of checks. We are testing the files right now internally. My staff is testing the files, and we'll be right on track to do mailing the end of November, early December timeframe is what we're looking at. So I think that we will report back at the December board meeting to give more information on various checks and amounts. So we'll group them however you would like to talk about them.
A full report is on that. I know Mario's been busy working on how we get this message out to the community, but obviously we did a great job getting the cashback program out to the community because 84,000 people were interested in participating, and now those who qualified are getting some money back.
And bear in mind, the program was not intended to be in place in 2015. This was for 2015's results. Originally, when we came up with the frequency program, it was supposed to start this fiscal year 16, but the board had voted, rightfully so, to retroactive for 6 months of fiscal 15. So again, I think it's a benefit to people who were in the program in 15 are also in the program in 16 as well. So.
Exactly.
So we moved it along, we came up with a great idea, and we moved it along and made it happen faster. So for the rhetoric around us to still exist 2 years after a 10-cent adjustment was made is frankly insulting to everyone who works so hard on this dais and in the offices of this building every single day. I just don't see it. Ridership is up, this program is up, the community is interested in participating, they're using our roadways. Enough. That's all.
Thank you, Board Member Weinberg. Board Member Cancio, and then Vice Chair Fano, because he had already expected. Go ahead.
You know, this afternoon I showed you about this flyer. I think that the flyer is not 100% correct, but it's about 95% correct. And it's something that, you know, 30% of tolls, it's not 30% of tolls that we're going to give back. Going to be the dividend cash program money, and it's sometimes the people that they are not inside of the MDX or very close to the MDX, they see this, they say, well, it's a big difference because what we're going to give is the $2.2 million.
Correct.
To some of the 37,000 people that they're going to apply, depending, you know, in how much money you spend. I think that I'm going to be the guy who's going to get the most because I go, you know, from Key Biscayne to Medley to the 836. And the other thing that I want to talk with the secretary, in the
not to go,
in the 826 north and south, it's a little complicated because, you know, when you're going to get the ramp to the south and when you're going to get the ramp to the north, it's a little, if you are not familiar, you are able to to go through. The other day that happened to me, I have a meeting in the Big Five, and I took, the A36, but I took the A36 in the left lane, and I have to land it in 107. I have to return, to go to 87. Sometimes what I see that some of the signs here in our county, sometimes they are not 100% very friendly. In the A26 this morning, because you have now the A36, 87 Avenue, you have to take, the right lanes. You take the 826 going north, you have one lane. You have the 826 south going to the ramp, and sometimes it's a little confused.
Board Member Cosio, that is a tremendously valid point. It just isn't what we're talking about now. We're talking about the program. If you'd like to speak about that with the Secretary, absolutely, I think it's an important issue, the signage. But we're discussing today the project, if that's okay. Any other? Vice Chair Fano, I apologize.
Thank you, Chair. As we move forward together, and I was advocating for prolonging the enrollment period.
Yes, you were.
My question now is, when's the next enrollment period?
Excellent question, and that is something that is going to be discussed in the future. If you recall, and at the last board meeting, there was a debate about this, and then you can follow up.
Yep.
There was a little discussion about moving it towards earlier in 2016 than pushing it all the way back to 2016. But staff, if you could discuss that.
I think at the last board meeting, there was a discussion of the possibility of advancing the open enrollment. Right now, open enrollment will be in July, open in July. I think there's a desire for us to try and advance that. We're looking at what it would take to advance it from all angles, and we'll report back to you so that we can give you a solid number of when and how long it would make sense, because there's a cost to it all. I mean, it's not a big cost, but there's a cost.
If I may, but it was so popular and so effective, I think it would be important for us to bring it as close as possible to where we are right now.
Well, if I may, Vice Chair, if you would not mind joining me on this one, I am going to make a request to staff right now that in our next meeting, which I believe is our December meeting, if I'm correct, I want that cost analysis completed, because I couldn't agree more with my Vice Chair, and I'm sure I speak for the entire board, that I don't want to wait until July. So unless there is a really strong reason for it, I'd like to have something put on our agenda for December so that we can open it much earlier than that. And I'm not speaking for everyone, but I pretty much get the temperature of everyone here, and I think everyone is in the same boat. So I'm requesting that we have something available to us. If we need to take it to one of the subcommittees, let's have it done before the December meeting so that hopefully we can reopen in January of 2016, if it's feasible. If it's not, it's not, but I'd like that to be our goal. And
This question's for Mario, if I may.
of course.
Is there not a way that we could do something like coming soon, be on the lookout, let's be prepared, drive as much as you can so you can get your refund? I mean,
I'm not sure that's
the more you spend, the more you get back. Just so that we get it out there, because again, how many people that I personally tapped said, did you sign up? They didn't know. So it's all about creating awareness, educating the public. You know, that's always my mantra, education, education. So I look to you for an
It's a great idea, Vice Chair. I think that's a wonderful idea, and we could explore and see exactly how we can do that.
Very much. Thank you.
Of course, and I will say, you can always do better at getting the word out there. But they worked very hard in getting the information about the cashback out, especially from all the way through August. And I will tell you that we spoke about it on television, we spoke about it on radio, we spoke about it everywhere. So can we do better? Always. We can always do better. But that doesn't mean, and these remarks are not to say that they didn't try. We just need to do better at it, that's all.
No, I think they did a great job, but now that you said that, something else comes to mind. We had 84,000 apply. We had 38,000 qualify. Yet there's 46,000 out there that'll probably say, why aren't I getting a refund? Maybe could it be because they think that when they travel on the Turnpike, or they travel on the Venetian Causeway, or they travel on Rickenbacker, well, is that the one that goes to Key Biscayne?
Yes.
That those tolls are going to qualify for the refund. I think, Mario, that's another thing that you need to incorporate and infuse in the information, that it's only for MDX, and maybe let them know.
Actually, Vice Chair Fano, in the policy itself, there was a requests that we communicate. It's on.
I remember.
It's communication to members who did not qualify due to not meeting the minimum threshold. So there will be a notice sent to a commuter who did not meet the minimum threshold explaining why.
And maybe
Yeah.
promoting that they sign up again next year, because you didn't make it this year.
Correct.
Doesn't mean you won't next year. So I think it's, again, back to my favorite thing, educate, please. Thank you.
Couldn't agree with you more. Thank you. Any other, yes, Ms. Schaefer?
Just to clarify on the program, we are looking to see from a technology perspective when we can open up enrollment. So we are investigating that now. As far as the current 38,000 that have registered, they don't have to re-register. They're just going to get an email saying, would you like to be in it? Please accept, and that's it. So automatically you have 38,000 that are in the program for the upcoming year.
But they have to say, yes, they want to
Well,
register.
All they have to do is accept the email, and the reason is that we want to confirm their address because people change, and we don't want to be mailing, check to the wrong address. So it is just, reconfirming, please update your information has to change and so forth. Your transponder may have changed. So we're trying to make it as convenient as possible for the people to register for the program.
Thanks for that clarification, Ms. Schaefer. Thank you. Any other comments about the program? Hearing none, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion is closed. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, item passes unanimously. Informational items. Any items they're in your packets if you're here to hear. Chair's comments. Let me begin by reemphasizing something that needs to always be clarified, and I will do this every time. We are all volunteers. All of us that sit on this dais, with the exception of Secretary Pago, are all volunteers. We don't receive a salary. We don't receive benefits. We do not get a magic golden sun pass that excludes us from having to pay the same tolls that our clients every day have to pay. So the same difficulties and challenges that many of our clients feel from different financial perspectives, we also suffer. My wife takes the turnpike to work every day, so she's not eligible for the cashback program. But I pay those tolls because I get the bill from SunPass for her traveling to West Kendall to go work as an assistant principal. I take Coral Way because my kids go to school down Coral Way, and I can tell you, traffic is just as difficult as it was last year. It's actually been very good, but there's traffic, depending on what time. If you leave before 7:30, it's a lot better than if you leave after 7:30, that's for sure. 84,000 people applied for our cashback program. That's a very good model of individuals that we can make a determination of how much people spend on our tolls. Is it exact science? Of course not. But later today, all of us are going to be home. Many of us are going to put on the TV. And we're going to hear about the New York Times poll relating to the presidential election, where 1,200 registered voters were polled, and the percentages show this, X, Y, and Z, who's ahead and who's not ahead. Out of the 100 million people that are going to vote in the next election, that is considered a scientific poll of 1,000 people, 1,200. Our sample is 84,000, 38,000 that are actually going to receive rebates because of the actions of this board. Our projects are going to create 10,000 new jobs. It's going to infuse more than $1 billion into this area. It's going to improve the way our transportation system works. 80% of the projects have already been bidded out or are in the process of being bidded out, if I'm correct about that. Correct, Mr. Chairman? That is going to infuse things. And we are a far-reaching board. It was far-reaching before I arrived, and it's far-reaching as I sit here with this tremendous group of individuals. We are going to do, the projects that we're doing now are not just to expand, but also prepare for the future. Our shoulders on 836 will now be fortified sufficiently to ensure that should rapid express buses become part of the future of public transportation, they are going to be ready for that. So we won't have to do more construction. I know I saw. Those are far-reaching ideas, and those come from our staff and from our board, who's today spent an hour and a half sitting here working hard for the future of our community. And I am proud to be your chairman during this time period. $2.2 million is going to be refunded to our clients. As Director Rodriguez said, and this was conveyed to Mayor Jimenez by myself and Mr. Rodriguez, rather than give a reduction of half a cent, I'd rather give somebody who has spent $200 on our tolls a $60 check, because that will make a difference. Half a cent respectfully will not. And that is the decision this board made, and it was, my opinion, the right decision. And I am proud of that decision. If next year, God willing, we have a larger pool of people who are participating, and God willing, we have a greater amount of money to return, I am looking forward to voting for another cashback next year to a larger group of individuals. I welcome people to join. And I also welcome anyone who wishes to come and speak to this board. It is part of our community. Board Member Concio, we can start a new clock today to see when is the next time people will come. I hope they come more often. I look forward to it. I think it creates great conversation, which is part of the excitement of this. But here is something that we learned today that is more information. We have seen an increase in the usage of our roads of 5.8%. That is not an opinion. That is not somebody stating this is what they believe, or they drove down the street and it seemed more crowded, or it didn't seem more crowded. That is hard facts and statistical support. I welcome anyone, if they feel that they have statistical support that contradicts that, to present it. Not an opinion, because we all have opinions, but facts that support, that contradict what we are presenting. Thank you all again for your hard work this evening. I try to keep these meetings short today, went a little longer than usual, but I appreciate all your efforts, and we will continue to do what is in the best interest of the community and for ourselves. Meeting adjourned. Second moved. Executive privilege. Thank you.